Hi, welcome to Convos2Connect. I'm your host, Dorothy Kamak. This broadcast is a space to discover peace in the present through the connecting power of conversations. On today's episode, I am delighted to talk with Jessica Fralin. Jessica is the author of the new book, Stolen: Is Social Media Stealing Your Identity? In her book, Jessica explores the effect social media is having on you and me. She speaks to the heart of women and our desire to be affirmed and valued. A millennial herself, Jessica understands the massive influence social media has on our lives. She lived this rapid rise in social media as a college student and Bible study leader of high school girls. Motivated by her deep desire to point young women to the only true source of their worth, Jessica offers practical, biblically rooted advice to break free from the bonds social media can have on the heart. But here's the thing, Jessica loves social media herself. I love her wisdom and insight on how we can actually promote healthy relationships with our online presence and be intentional about using social media for good. We also talk about ways to be present in our lives, gain peace in the process, and live settled when it comes to being online and off. Join us as we discuss safeguards, practical tips, and digging deeper to uncover our true identity. It's a great conversation from the couch of the BB. Okay, so enough talking about Jessica. Let me introduce you, and let's get to the conversation. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Convos2Connect. I am super excited because I actually just met my next guest, but I recently, yesterday, finished her book, and I want to welcome Jessica Fralin to the show. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
So good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm super excited. Well, Jessica, I think it's kind of funny that we actually met via Skype, this, technology world that we live in. And why I am bringing you on the show is this book that came into my path just probably about a month ago, which is called #Stolen. And do you say hashtag when you talk about the book?
Or I actually have started just saying stolen. I don't know if it's because I'm just talking about it a lot these days, but the hashtag is super helpful when I'm talking about it on social media because it just already has its little category. But I've just been saying stolen.
Stolen. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And it's called, for those of you who don't know about the book, it's called Stolen: Is Social Media Stealing Your Identity? And this book actually came on my radar because of social media. And I immediately was like, I think I need to read that because A, that's a really important topic. B, I feel like personally it's something that, goes straight to the core.
Oh, yeah. I needed to read it too.
Yeah. So Jessica, tell me and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of, a little bit about your journey and kind of what led you to write this book.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm living in Nashville, working at a church here, which is amazing. Love this city. Have always loved writing and loved the ministry side of writing and just the power that words can have to just breathe truth into places in life. I think words are super powerful. There's actually some chapters about that in the book of just, especially with social media, the power of the written word has just gone crazy. And so I started noticing this trend probably about 5 years ago. I was leading a high school girls small group and just noticed some crazy things in the offhanded comments they would make about, I posted this selfie on Instagram and not very many people liked it, so I'm going to take it back down. Or, I tweeted this guy that I like and he didn't tweet me back and this is the worst day ever. And just things that I realized social media was starting to kind of speak to them about if they mattered as people. And that was huge to me because I didn't grow up with I grew up in, like, the MySpace to Facebook era.
Right.
And that's kind of all there was, and it was on, like, our family desktop computer.
Exactly.
So I kind of feel like I got to sit in the generation that saw the rise of social media and saw just how that started to affect our hearts. And so I kind of just went to the Lord about it and said, hey, I can't find any curriculum about this. My girls are clearly struggling with it. I struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
I just want there to be something that's just speaking the truth about it, because it's not going away. Social media is here.
Yeah.
To stay, definitely. So how can we handle this, and why can't I find anything? And as it always is when I tell Jesus what he needs to do.
Oh, yes.
He just said, well, why don't you write it? And immediately it was the backpedal, like, oh, no. Like, that's not what I meant. I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
I had always loved writing and blogged personally for friends and family, but never had considered a career in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the long story short is that he just brought about a total miracle and paid my way to go to a writing conference, She Speaks, with Proverbs 31 Ministries, and got to connect with some incredible publishers there. Abingdon Press actually picked up my book as a result of that conference as a 20-year-old, having never written anything that was published beyond free online.
Right.
And so, during my junior year of college, I wrote the book. And in that time, kind of birthed a new passion for it. Even though it was something I was burdened for before, I wouldn't say I was passionate about it until I really started doing the research and studying, and I was just like, this matters.
Yeah, and I like that. What people will see when they pick up the book is that you really, you're speaking to our generation and, those after us, but you're also, you did your research here. Like, it's the fact, there's fact things throughout the book, and it's kind of like startling how, I don't know if it's because we're living this change so quickly, but the research that you provide that's already out there of how it's already affected society is mind-boggling,
Yeah.
And so
I was blown away because, I just knew within my little context that it was a big deal.
Right.
But once I actually started looking at numbers of this is how much time we're spending online, this is how it affects our mood and our happiness and our character and all these things, I was blown away.
Yeah.
And I was like, we have to include this. I just don't want it to be an opinion thing. I want people to be aware that this is what's happening.
Yeah. And I think, you definitely provide that. What, so you're in the midst of writing this book, you're around high schoolers, you're in college yourself. What, was there a moment that, you yourself decided, like, I really want to be more intentional about this? Like, how did that look for you writing, and also navigating and living it,
Yeah, it was a weird balance, and is a weird balance. A lot of times now that the book is out, I get people asking me, like, oh, so you don't have social media accounts? And I'm like, oh, no, I love social media.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
I think there was a very specific moment for me, and it's toward the end of the book, but it's actually one of the first things that I had written, and it's in talking about putting out some of the fires that social media starts in our hearts that may be rooted in lies. And I was just praying over what kind of things the Lord might want me to give advice on. Like what, because I don't want to just scream, get away from social media, it's bad, that's not my heart at all. And so I thought, what are some good safeguards that I could kind of provide people that they wouldn't feel like I'm being preachy, but that would be helpful. And as I started to come up with those, I started to think, I'm going to have to do these. Because I certainly can't tell everybody, this would be a really healthy way.
Yeah, you should try this.
I'm not going to do it, but you really should.
Yeah.
And so I started implementing just like fasts from social media. And a lot of times they're 24 hours. It's not, I'm not saying, delete your accounts, take a 3-month sabbatical or whatever, but just to take a day to be really, really present and not use those 5-minute little blocks that I have to just scroll through Twitter or Instagram or whatever. And I really had no idea how many times a day I was doing that until I stopped and saw that that was my go-to reaction. And so for me, a lot of it has just been becoming aware of how much of my time it fills. Because even taking those little breaks just kind of clears out a lot of the chaos and voices that may speak into it. It's not necessarily that you have to even do anything different in the way that you're on social media. It's just making sure that you take time to live outside of it as well.
Yeah. And I think that's, it sounds so simple, but it's like, again, I think it's maybe the newness of this in our culture, but it's like what you said, the awareness, just taking a moment, because I think, like in my own life, unless I'm intentional, and I've been a little more intentional just this week, because of the book, and I'm like, oh, like, when you're not thinking about it,
even realize.
You don't realize, like, how much of, your time it's sucking out, and actually, I don't think it was even on the radar for me as much. You talk a lot about our worth and our value, like, as daughters of the Lord, like, how, and it's, if someone would have asked me, before, it's just been in recent years of my own journey, but if someone would have said, do you put your worth in social media, or what someone says likes, like you were talking about the high school girls, I would have been like, no, not at all. Like, that's not,
and they wouldn't have said that they did either.
Right, but it's like, oh, well, actually, like, my mood is affected, Yeah. So
the thing I think that's so dangerous about social media, without sounding like an alarmist, but dangerous, is that it's so subtle.
Yes.
If someone were to come up to us and tell us all these negative things about our body image or our worth, we would not let that. That would roll right off our back.
Right.
But because it's just these little things of like, well, this person's house is decorated better than yours, and their outfits are better, and they have 5 less pounds they're carrying around, and all these things that no one really even has to say anything. You just start to kind of feel the weight of that.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying, just, even 24 hours, if we intentionally allow that burden can be released, and you can kind of feel, and it's like, oh, like, I didn't need that, weight on me. And
I think the counterpart to that is also to fill that time then with things that are going to be really truthful and really life-giving, and learning even to speak truth to me, because a lot of times it's so much easier for me to believe the best about other people, but then to be hard on myself.
Yes.
And to know, like, that's not the way God views me, and I just need to be living in that truth instead of playing the comparison game.
Exactly.
Just even for a day.
Yeah.
It's really transformative.
Yeah. And speaking more to that, like, you talk some in the book about, our relationship with social media, and I love that you're not extreme, like saying social media is, of the devil, you understand that it's here to stay. So what could you, for someone who hasn't read the book yet, what are some things that we can do to be intentional about using our time on social media for good, for life-giving things?
I have been guilty of, and have also seen the, like, funny complaints that happen online often. And I think that's coming from a place of people wanting to be real and, not to make their life seem just all roses and all that kind of stuff. But I've tried really hard to stay away from either extreme, whether it's, oh, my life is so glamorous and perfect, but also, oh, all my days are really hard. And instead, if I'm not going through a great day or a great season, I just try to send out something that is truth.
Yeah.
And so whether that's what I need to hear or whether it's what somebody else needs to hear, sometimes if things aren't great, rather than taking that negativity to social media, I'm just going to preach to me and whoever might be listening, something that would be encouraging. And so that's one way that I try to use social media for good, and also just kind of to reflect that back in my own heart.
Yeah. I think that's great. And a lot of times it is like, it's for us just as much as it's for our friends on social media too. Like, I love when people share, if they're doing like a verse of the day, those things that you can share, because like you said, that is truth. And it's like, there is an encouragement, or even just like the flowery little things that, or my mom, might share like 100 of them. And I'm like, well, that's better on my newsfeed than like, all the
something hateful or crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing that I do is a lot of times I feel like we love our friends and think the best of them in our heads, but we may not ever tell them. And so I love to like Instagram shout out, post a picture of me and a good friend, if it's someone that I'm not living close by anymore or whatever, and they're just on my mind, to just post an Instagram caption of like, this, I'm so thankful for this friend and this is why, because what a cool like notification for them to get on their phone just on a Tuesday. Just things like that just kind of elevate friends and promote healthy relationships instead of ones that compare or tear down. So just, it's little things, I feel like this whole entire, like everything about the book is alarmingly simple. But those little things make a huge difference. And
I think too, it shouldn't be, speaking to, as a Christian, like, or really it, for those who are watching that are not Christians, like separating our online lives, like our hearts should flow through. So we're called and we want to encourage our friends, in real life, like if they walked in the door with a cute outfit, it's like, oh girl, you're looking cute today. You can do that online too, and I think sometimes we want to just like, separate.
Yeah, there's like a wall between our life and our social media life.
And it should spill over. Okay, so I talk a lot about with my friends online about staying present, and like life is, like you said earlier, chaotic, and social media just makes that even more, apparent, and things you might not have even realized are there every day. And then you've got your real life distractions. Are there, you talked a little bit about this before, but do you have a daily practice you could give to someone who hasn't read the book yet, that you kind of like how Jessica starts her day, or things that, help you stay in the moment without totally getting sidetracked or down?
Out of all the battles that we talk about with social media in the book, that's definitely my hardest one. Because whenever something is, especially when things are great, whenever there's something awesome going on in my life, or I'm at a cool event, or even just like there's a beautiful day, like my first instinct is to want to capture it and keep it, through like a video on my smartphone, or to text someone about it, or whatever. And so I have to just think a lot of times, like, keep your phone in your pocket and just live this experience. Like, you have a brain, you will remember it, even if you don't take a picture, it's going to be fine. And then another thing, and this isn't even necessarily social media, this is just smartphone in general. And I'm not, like, saying that I do this every day, but my day is always better when I get up and have time to myself to get ready, to have breakfast, to sit down and have a few minutes with Jesus before I get on my email, my texts. Like, even if I'm not on a social media site, the second that I check a work email, I'm out. My brain is engaged. So I just am working to implement that practice in my own life even. I definitely wouldn't say that I've perfected it, but I just notice that the mornings that I just turn my alarm off and leave my phone on the dresser for the first hour of my day, I just have a lot more peace throughout my morning.
That's so great. That's such an encouragement, too, because it's not going to be perfection. It's not something that, we're going to all tomorrow say, I'm not going to have my phone for the first 2 hours of the day, but it's, it's just, little by little. And I think recognizing that, you're saying it's an encouragement that there is peace in that, and, we can cultivate that and work on that. And that's really good. I
think it's really hard for me to hear from Jesus when there are already so many other voices bouncing around in my head. And so whether that's like a break for the first hour in the morning or one of those 24-hour breaks I mentioned before, like the biggest thing it gives me is just space.
Yes.
And I feel like that's all we need sometimes. It's just a little bit of space to remind ourselves of like our real identity and what we know to be true. But we forget just because it's busy and it's chaotic and it's constant.
Yes. And like you say in the book, it's now more than ever there's these things coming at us. There's the lies of the enemy and our daily lives, but with this added tool or avenue of things coming in, it's just there's a more, I feel like, desperate need to get that space, because
yes, I think so.
It's just,
I think we have the least breathing room of any generation so far.
It's a great way to put it. Okay, so what's you obviously are really in the millennial environment, and you are one. Would you say, and not necessarily related to social media, but just as Jessica, like, what would be, just what you would leave other millennials watching, like your best piece of advice today, or
oh my goodness,
I know that's probably a tough
How
one
long
to put
do
into.
you have? No, I'm just kidding.
Part 2. Or is there something right now that you're kind of learning and you're like, I would have loved for someone to put this on my radar a few years ago, or when I was in college or something?
So what I'm learning right now and trying to be better at, and I wish that I knew before and could have started cultivating this sooner, is the importance of being present, not just like in our own moments like we talked about, but in other people's lives. Because I think that social media has made us a little bit self-centered in the way that, like, we just want to tweet and Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and whatever else.
Whatever
this is
app
what I'm
comes
doing.
out.
This is what's happening to me. This is how I feel. And we kind of have become used to a monologue instead of a dialogue, and it's just kind of about us. And in college especially, I know that there have been times when I had people over to my house, and then it's just like, let me tell you all the things that are going on in my life. Oh, I got to go to class.
Yeah.
And so we spent time together, but I wasn't present for them. And so one of the things I'm learning the most about, and again, this isn't necessarily even about social media, this is just about relationships across the board.
Right.
It's just to be present. Sometimes the most powerful example of the gospel even, and the way that we can love other people, is just by showing up and being there and being a listener and being a friend and not making it about us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that social media has definitely contributed to that mindset for me. But I also think it's just human nature.
Exactly.
We all want to feel connected to and understood and loved, but one of the best ways we can get those feelings is by being that kind of friend and cultivating that kind of relationships. And so whether I'm at work or with my roommates or just meeting up with somebody new for coffee, I'm trying really hard to be present in their life instead of only asking them to be present in mine.
That's so great. That's good. I love that.
Not great at it yet.
It's a process. It's
that's my best advice for me.
No, that's
for anyone else.
That is. Oh, I need that advice myself, because it's hard, and like you said, it's a natural. We're naturally wired that way as sinners, and it's dying to self. And that's where we see Christ's love the most, is when we're thinking outside of ourselves,
Yeah.
So cool.
Definitely.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm going to wrap this up for our recording session part. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Jessica, for taking your time
Thank you so much.
And I will. Oh, can you tell everybody before we wrap this where they can find you and where they can? I'll link on the site, but if you could tell everybody kind of how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so I am on social media. My Twitter and Instagram handles are at Jessica Fralin. I have an author page on Facebook, and I also blog over at jessicafralin.com.
Awesome.
So you can find me any of those places. And also on the website, there's a link to all the stores that sell my book, where you can find it on Amazon, all those kinds of things. So the book is through the website as well.
Perfect. Awesome. And one of the viewers will be getting, not this copy because I've marked it all up, but they'll be getting a free copy of your book. So everybody tune in and comment. Yes, connect with Jessica, and one of you will win this book. So anyway, all right.